That's a good discussion. Out of all this, though, based on today, what do you think the biggest hurdles are, both from a technological aspect and then so there's technology and there's also application and there's people actually using it for real use case studies. What do you think are the biggest hurdles for us to move forward within this industry?
You mean within AI or both?
Yeah.
For AI, I don't, I think we're in the process of the third wave of AI. And we keep talking about data, data and tons of it. But I think there is a way that we can solve the reasoning process without tons of data. And the first wave was building smartphone applications. It was building the Windows operating system. It was basically building things from a human being's perspective and knowing exactly what to build. The second wave was literally using tons of data and seeing the probability and the statistical analysis. So I think AI needs to move away from all these tons of data because human beings, we don't think like that. When you look at a cow, for example, you don't think, okay, that has 86% chance of being a cow. That's not how we operate. You see what I mean? We look at it and we say, okay, it has four legs. It's got an udder. It's got a hoof. It's spotted, so maybe it's a milking cow. That's how human beings think. So, we have to move away from, in the AI sense, we need to move away from just thinking about, supercomputers and tons of data. Because at the end of the day, that's nothing but a super calculator. And is that really intelligent? I don't think so.
I think that there's three things that you're looking at when it comes to frontier technologies, right? Because all this stuff is like nascent. We've been developing AI, like you said, since the 1950s. And there are a lot of theories being floated around. Is it the algorithms? Is it the data? Is it the computing power? Finally, speed up to 1990s, we have the computing power to prove out some of those theories, right? And then, then Hinton came out with a convolutional neural network and was able to actually, with gradient descent and backpropagation, which probably doesn't mean anything to you, was able to test some of it out, and now there's a useful application for it, right? So we've been developing this for a long time, but it's not really turned into a user behavior. When people are fearing about AI, I just think, you shouldn't be scared about what it can do. At this point in time, you should be scared about how pervasive it is and that you don't even know it. And it's collecting all that data and information about you, right? I mean, if an AI is smart enough to pass a Turing test, and a Turing complete test is when it passes for human, right? Then it's certainly smart enough to fail it on purpose and not let you know.
Do we need to have quantum computers for that to happen?
Pardon me?
Do we need to have quantum computers for that to happen?
No, you know what? Honestly, instead of having the fear part, I think that there's three things that sort of need to happen, right? First, you have to look at the technology and the capacity of what it can actually do to set realistic expectations of the technology. Second, you have to look at the business models, right? That it's necessitating. Because, we went from a commodity-based economy to the information economy to now then a knowledge-based economy. And now it's all being big data-driven economy. Right? So we have to look at, the value of that and how to make sure that it comes back to the people that bring value to it. And third, of course, is, give ample opportunities for people to be included in it, whether that's financial inclusion or through game theory or through behavioral economics, is to let people get sticky with the technology so that it's constantly being trained with human considerations. And I think those are the big three.
I think just to build off on that, is I think AI needs to be more operational in a setting to enable tactical judgment as opposed to strategic decision making. To your point, yes, quantum computers are coming, but given infinite computing power and time, yeah, you can solve any problem. But then you have to look at what are the problems we need to solve today in a given setting, and I think that's where AI needs to go as far as development. Is to become smaller, become faster, and get integrated, just like we have in our phones today, but obviously the next level of, snapping a picture and it'll show it's a cow. It doesn't have to guess that, well, at 14% it could be something else, but it is right there and then, it's a cow. You don't need to connect to AWS to make sure it's a cow. So that's the type of thing that I see AI needs to do, and obviously there's a lot of applications going around, self-driving cars, healthcare, financial decision-making, that needs to be tactical in the moment, right there and then, as opposed to come back and see me in a week, and I'll tell you what the answer is.
On the blockchain side, in terms of adoption, I'll talk in terms of enterprise adoption, because I think that's kind of the area of my focus. In addition to everything you said at the beginning, scalability and all these other issues that blockchain has, I think the enterprise space kind of went through a little bit of a evil that kind of a thing with crypto. All crypto is when we're designing our TransformationWorx course for blockchain, it's kind of funny. We had an advisory group a couple of years ago, and we have in our program crypto and tokens and all these things covered. And some of the program advisory people, the CTOs of large companies, said, "Why are you talking about crypto? Crypto is just bad. Take it out." And my view was like, we're here to impartially inform people and let them make a decision. And then there's this big move, okay, we don't want to get into tokens, and tokens are evil. And then, it's just a consensus, and I'm sure many of you may have heard that, very recently Hyperledger Fabric, and they did a initiative with IBM, did a proof of concept with Stellar Lumen tokens, with Hyperledger Fabric, right? So now they're finally, I think they stalled it a little bit, because when you take the token economy and you take some of that stuff out of blockchain, it's like designing cities without the need of human beings, right? Exactly. Like, what's the purpose of this stuff? I'm sorry, that's just my point of view. But to me, I always see that there's the gas that powers the engine, no reference to Ethereum, but that powers the engine that you're talking about, and that to me that fuel is the tokenomics and everything in that space. So to some extent, I think the enterprise space, one reason was technology and things like that, just the philosophical approach. I think the bigger reason and the issue with adoption has been, there have been tons of proof of concepts, right? And the challenges in adoption from a proof of concept perspective, where the IT department or some techie that is crazy about blockchain does a proof of concept, and then it doesn't see the light of day. And I think one of the challenges there is the lack of ability for the group that's doing the proof of concept to show business value. And I think that's also another part of it. It's not just the technology hurdles, it's also where is the business value.
But I think that's going to change the next decade or so. Even me as an entrepreneur, I've been building businesses since I was 15. I'm only 33. I'm at a fundamental crisis in my mind, trying to think of the future. Like, wait a second, I'm a capitalist, but then again, the whole business model changing. We're going to have decentralized, hypothetical AI DAOs in the future. Like, how does the world look like in the next decade or so?
That's true. And to the point of today, we have the technologies. Blockchain is more of trying to democratize the space. You've got AI now, it's kind of centered with the big guys. I mean, they've been using it for a while now. I mean, look at, the data privacy, the Facebook, where, they expose all your data for advertisers and whatnot. This is AI. And then back to the point where, 85% probability that this is a cow. Basically, this technology is used on us to say it's 85% probability this is you walked in the store. I'm going to put an offer for you. So basically, the probability is used on us by the big guys. So there's adoption from the mainstream enterprise for AI right now, and they're doing a lot of investment in this space. And the victims or the product of this technology is us, because we provided the data, and we are the ones that are buying the products. So it's a double sword. Now, will blockchain democratize this, making AI available to us so that we can go actually and then kind of counterbid the big guys, say, this other vendor is providing better offer for us? Then blockchain maybe can democratize this.
The biggest issue, like if you guys are familiar with Sam Harris, and they're talking about, like, let's say we have quantum computers at room temperature and they're actually stable and scalable, where the human element, like this is just hypothetical. His case scenario is like, okay, the United States figures out, okay, Russia within a week will have this tech. It's a self-sentient AI, and let's say it's Comrade AI. For some reason, this self-sentient AI is like, I decide to be, communist Russian, whatever. the American, let's say, Secret Service or American Army would then do a full-fledged attack, and this is a physical attack against the Russian government. So for me, my kind of question for that is, like, do you see a human element that's dangerous within the actual evolution of AI? Not AI itself as AI, but the human consciousness itself.
See,
Well-
I think we're focusing on the wrong things. Even before we get there, there's plenty of other pitfalls, right? I mean, think of it this way, right? There are cities that are being built that took 5 years in the planning on how to integrate this technology. I'm an advisor on the Hoboken P3 Smart Cities project, where entire cities are becoming living digital labs, right? They're notifying every nook and cranny where there is an overpass of human traffic with data, right? It may look like a tree or a lamppost, but it's solar powered and it's got sensors. It's not only counting cars and people and tracking them somewhat, but it also has sensors that's tracking the acidity level of water and the water levels. And it's also tracking potential accidents, right? And in between all of that, it's also managing the inventory of parked cars and spaces and working with merchants so that you pass by it and it's offering you discounts off every service that's in that city. And it's allowing citizens to report on things. And for good actor behavior, you get rewarded with tokens that you can then trade for airtime on your phone. Right? Imagine cities as living labs and social experiments, and that's what I want to look for. Now, I'm not saying that those dangers are not there, right? But I have seen wave upon wave of the exact same tired arguments being put out with everything from DNA replication and gene sequencing to even stem cell research. Every time it's like, oh no, it's going to kill us. We're messing with the stuff of life. This is hubris. What's going to happen? This is the worst case scenario. Let's work backwards. It's the exact same stuff.
Yeah, but let me just kind of question this. So now I think we know how to come up with these models, but then they need data. Like, whose data are they using? For example, when we start looking at the genetics, sequencing and whatnot, they need data from our genetic information. So will you be able to disclose the information to some centralized authority, say, this is my DNA, and this is my family's DNA, my brothers and sisters, my sons and daughters' DNA, and then go use it as, to feed your AI algorithm? I think from a very physical space, which is very low risk, it's fine. I think it's been used for a while now. We can count cars and whatnot, but then when we start, messing up with who we are, and then we're giving this to the oracles to say, go now and try to use and expose our identities to insurance companies, to banks and others. So this is where we need to think kind of like forward on this. We need to plan, because the technology is moving at a very, 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 very fast pace. I mean, look at the demo that Google presented like 2 weeks ago, where they would just have their robots, calling up people and then posing as humans. And the technology is there today. So, are we going to do something about it? Are we going to acknowledge that there's some governance that needs to happen around this so that we can move the technology in the right direction? I think we have to start, thinking and enforcing those types of things right now.
So what do you do when legislation is already always 40 years behind practitioners?
Again, this is exactly why we're here. Why
You
we're
build
talking about
anyways.
it. Yeah, exactly.
Build it anyways, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we should all have sovereignty over our own data, yes? We should have access to it. We should have value from it. We should have the choice of whether to contribute to it or not. Every time that you take those personality quizzes on Facebook, they're not personality quizzes. That's them taking your data.
Exactly.
Right? So be aware of it. Decide, cogently of how you're planning to use it and where it goes. Now, GDPR, says, great. If you are a resident of the EU and you take someone's data that is not anonymized and can be tracked back to the individual, that you could be fined up to 4% of your global turnover. But at the same time, it's shockingly silent on the main points as to, well, if you take that data and you run it through an enriched network and you're training your APIs with it, and then that data gets run through, okay, so now it's dipped out of 3 or 4 enriched networks and APIs. Who does that data belong to, right? shockingly silent. So it managed to be comprehensive and punitive, but without laying out clear indicators of this modern economy.